this election and the tactics of this administration using government agencies to suppress the vote. I mean, in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, they have billboards up. DHS has billboards up about, what claiming, quote, illegals, should be afraid to vote, which is, of course, what does that even mean? And, there's voter suppression tactics specifically targeted at people of color and immigrants across this country. So, Rachel, you're working with Dream Defenders, and you guys are doing incredible work in Florida where, it's like ground zero of voter suppression. Can you just give us a breakdown of like the tactics right now being used in Florida, and then about your work?
Sure. Florida, we've been under far-right Republican trifecta control for the past 20 years. And in that time, we've seen a rise in mass incarceration. We are number 50th in terms of access to health insurance and unemployment. And in the middle of the pandemic, our governor was focused on tax write-offs to corporations instead of meeting the needs of people. And actually, our governor his popularity rate, he only won by 20,000 votes in the last election, has gone down dramatically. And his popularity rate, has gone down in the wake of the pandemic because of the failed response. And so actually about a month ago, he introduced legislation, even though legislative session doesn't even start till next March, around this basically extreme anti-Black Lives Matter bill. And the bill is around creating felonies for, people who are just doing basic protests, automatic felonies, eliminating bail, mandatory minimums. And so this was sort of a distraction tactic in order to rile up his base by using this like dog whistle politics around criminalizing Black people and criminalizing people who are protesting around racial justice in order to get his base riled up to turn out. So, our heart is really in Philadelphia right now, and we feel a lot of connection with what y'all are experiencing.
You had this bill, there was a proposition that was passed, of course, to remind folks that granted formerly incarcerated individuals to vote. And of course, the right wing has done everything they can to prevent those folks from voting by adding essentially a poll tax to this. Can you explain it a little bit more for us?
Yeah, so in 2018, the same year where our Republican governor won by 20,000 votes, Florida voters voted to repeal this Jim Crow era law that disenfranchised 1 in 4 Black people by saying if you had a felony, you couldn't vote. So immediately, this would have completely changed political power for our communities. In Florida, elections are won by 20,000 votes, 50,000 votes, like less than a percentage point, less than a Beyonce concert, like literally. And the infusion of 1.4 million voters into the electorate, that type of expansion would have completely changed the game in terms of what's possible for politics in Florida. And so the first thing the Republican governor did was pass legislation that mandated a poll tax. It was taken to court. They said that the poll tax was not legal, and then that got challenged, and now the court is upholding it. And so, we've been basically fundraising to be able to pay off people's fees and fines, which they're also trying to challenge, so that people have this basic right to vote. But I think the right wing knows their days are numbered in Florida. They know that we are building a long-term plan to expand the electorate, to get more and more people the access to ballot. And if that happens, their days are numbered, so they're doing everything they can in their power to stop Amendment 4 and to stop other efforts to expand the ballot and to get people out.
Rep. Rabb, Pennsylvania is in the news every day.
Yeah.
I can't keep up. Like, that's where I am right now. I'm just going to let you take the floor. And what are they doing in Pennsylvania right now? Last time we talked, there was this mail-in ballot, went to the Supreme Court. I don't even know where we are. So can you catch us up to date?
Sure. As it stands,
we have voter suppression update, by the way, guys.
Right. Well,
it's a new segment.
Right. So as it stands, this is the first time in Pennsylvania history that we've had early voting. It was a bipartisan bill that passed in October of 2019. And this was before we knew that there was a pandemic coming. So it was completely bipartisan. what the Republicans gained out of supporting this was getting rid of straight ticket voting. Now, I don't know if they have that in Florida, but you could press one button and vote straight Republican or straight Democrat. Well, we've had that for years in Pennsylvania, and Republicans who were concerned about holding on to their slim majorities in the House and Senate in Harrisburg were like, oh, if we decouple this, we might be able to save some incumbents. So that was the price Democrats paid for getting early voting. It was not called early voting. It was called mail-in voting. But there was a provision in the law that kind of snuck in there very artfully by Democrats to allow for county commissioners, election boards, to have satellite election offices set up before election day so people could drop off their mail-in ballot or pick one up and fill it out right then and there. So it was essentially early voting. And that's what's happened over the past about month. I'd say past 3 or 4 weeks. The law allows for 50 days, up to 50 days to vote before an election. But because of court challenges and logistics and money, we couldn't set up the infrastructure to create these satellite election offices. But since they've been up, the turnout has been extraordinary. And I represent, as you always like to hear me say, the bluest dot in the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in Northwest Philly. So I have a majority Black district and a very civically engaged district, and we come out to vote, and we are coming out in huge numbers such that whatever chicanery and troublemaking that's happening by Republicans in other places, I think our turnout will far surpass whatever they're able to do in rural counties. But to your point, the latest with regard to the court rulings is that the state Supreme Court allowed for ballots to be sent in and received up until the Friday after Election Day, as long as there's no postmark or it's postmarked by November 3rd. All right?
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and signatures do not have to be identical to the signatures that are signed, put on the outer envelope of a mail-in ballot and what's in the voter roll. So if I forget to put M for my middle initial, I won't be disqualified. So the Republicans came back at us again after the United States Supreme Court had a 4-4 ruling that says we're going to let this be. They came back again and said, get rid of all the ballots after November 3rd.
Okay.
And they did not allow that to happen, but they have another bite at the apple. So basically, we are now segregating ballots that come in after November 3rd. So we can start counting those ballots at 7 a.m. on November 3rd. This is why it's important for the entire country. If we get the first 100,000 mail-in ballots counted in Philly alone, and it says 90% went to Biden, we know that the remaining 400,000 in Philly, it's 90% Biden, which means that we will know that 360,000 votes we will have vote banked 360,000 votes or thereabouts, which means that on election night, when we've counted all the votes at the machines and Trump is up by 200,000, we know that, we're going to blow them out of the water. So we may actually be able to predict who's won Pennsylvania without counting perhaps over half of all the ballots, because we will have known how Philly does, how Allegheny County, Montgomery County, and we'll also see what the turnout is in bright red spots. If bright red counties do the same or less than they did in 2016, we're definitely going to be able to call the election by midnight.
Thanks for watching and listening to The Nomiki Show. But remember to click like and subscribe on YouTube, and please share on social media. If you're not already a patron, please join us for as low as $5 a month on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for early and special content. That investment makes a huge difference. We are not corporate media raking in the dough. It's really you guys that are keeping us going. So please consider being a patron. And to our current patrons, thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful to you. We also now have swag. So check us out on thenomikishow.com to get your mugs, your totes, and your stickers.